Kiran, we spent a lot of time recently together in the US because Kiran's movie Lapata Ladies was India's entry to the Oscars. So, so we were on a road trip across America showcasing the film, etc. And I was just a groupie going along, inviting all my cool friends to every screening. So, this is your second directorial endeavor, so to speak, and you are from Malleshwaram, regular nice neighborhood girl, and you don't have any film background, and where did this start for you, like of being in the films, and what gave you the first break? Coming from Bangalore, where I'm sure you had to be either an engineer or a doctor, and so where did that diverge? How did this thing of being a filmmaker start for you?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me, Lakshmi. I think for me, my journey has been quite privileged because I came from a family which privileged education over everything else. I had parents who encouraged me from the very beginning to stand on my own feet, and their emphasis really was, be independent. Whatever you do, don't depend on us, which I feel was great advice at a time when most girls were being told, how to look for the most eligible match.
Right,
and
yeah.
my dad was very much like, okay, so when are you going to get your college degree and masters? You're not going to do a masters, which is incredible luck and privilege. And I think it was after I finished, I was in school very drawn to the arts. I liked writing and music and performance. I used to do a lot of acting in school and in college. And somehow I came from the generation when either you studied engineering or medicine or finance. Management was the whole new thing back then. So I kind of fancied that maybe I could work in economics, but like developmental economics. So sort of economics in the social sector. And so I did an econ degree, but somewhere at the end of that, I realized that, the pull of the arts was too strong. What really then struck me was that there was a choice here. I knew that there was not a very steady, I think, career ahead of me. The film industry was a very, very opaque kind of whole sort of world at that point. I was studying in Calcutta, and I did my college in Bombay and my master's. So then before I did my master's, I kind of talked to my parents and I was like, I want to do my master's in communication, in film. And my parents were like, okay, we know nothing about this. You're on your own, basically. We'll pay your fees and things like that, but you're on your own. And I was fortunate to get into Jamia and then did a degree in it, which really opened up my sort of world to the power of cinema. I didn't grow up around cinema. I grew up around photography and performance like theater, music. And here was this whole world of image making. So it was I realized that I want to do film, but I want to also work in the space where film can, in some ways, speak to the problems of our times. Films that can be, touch people, be relevant beyond just entertainment. And so that's how I did my degree. And then I came to Bombay, which is a whole other story because I didn't know anyone there. And it took me a couple of years before I could find my footing in the industry. And just worked my way to making my first film as an AD, which was Lagan in 2000.
So it's like, you have to do your time, right? You are an AD, then you have to be something else. What was the movie? Is it Dil Chahta Hai? I think where you're in like one background where they come to the hotel where that girl is, he's trying to hide from the girl and you come in. So like there's this Kiran somewhere in the back there, And so you have to put in your time. So tell me a little bit about, we only look at the glamour, we look at the end of it. Like here you are, walking the lanes in LA and showing your film, etc. But there is that AD thing, that walk on part thing, etc. Tell me a little bit about how you keep yourself motivated when you're in a stage where nobody recognizes you. So is it the kind of friends you have? Like, what is it that keeps you going?
Just to backtrack, when I got a job as an AD, this was also a time when there weren't that many women in the industry at all. I was lucky to do this film Lagan, where there was the second AD, the third, we were two third ADs, and we were both, three of us out of a 4-person team were women. And we were, unlike what people think about the industry, we had the best experience working with a largely male crew. We were given a lot of respect. We were taken very seriously. And that, I think, made me realize that, look, there is space for us here in this industry. And I need to work to bring more women on board. I worked for many, many years as an AD before I wrote my first film, which was Dhobi Ghat. I had started working with Aamir Khan Productions by 2005, 2006. And I realized that one of the things that happens to most women creators is that, like women in most fields, we have so many other demands on us and expectations of us that just being purely, sort of dedicated, a filmmaker is often not an option.
Correct.
I kind of got married and was trying to have a child, and I was writing my film at the same time and made my film at the first film at the same time as when I was having my son. And I think because I've had a long gap between the two films, and a lot of people ask me why. And honestly, of course, it's partly choice. I wasn't quite ready to make my second, and I really was interested in spending time with my son. But I was continuously working. I was writing right through. I was producing Dangal and Secret Superstar and a whole bunch of other films that we made. But I think I'm only admitting to myself now how much sort of women feel and are kind of given the responsibility of raising your children, looking after your home, and then having to do your career at the same time.
Right, yeah.
It's more often than not a very solitary job, raising your kids. Very rarely do you get a super, sort of supportive and equal partner. And so the 10 years that I spent between the two films was a lot of that, trying to find it within myself to do everything.
But the thing that's interesting is, even though Aamir is also an equal partner, and you have help and all that stuff, women take it upon themselves to be there. If Aamir was going and doing a film, he's not worried about what's happening to the kid. But if you have to go, you feel without anybody asking you.
Exactly.
So some of the times I feel that it's something self-imposed.
It's a conditioning. It's conditioning. I mean, over time you realize how much of what we feel is our free will and choice is millennia of conditioning.
Yes, yeah.
It's not new. And that women are nurturers are something that we've, of course, sort of like subconsciously taken, on as our primary goal. And often we are not, we feel the need to kind of be able to multitask in a way that men don't.
Right.
They also have been taught to be just career oriented, and that's its own sort of burden and yoke that men carry. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I've been surrounded by people who've supported me, and I think I've realized going along that I really would like to work with a lot more women, push a lot more women in the industry. And now I have a company of my own, so I'm sort of doing a lot more kinds of films, a lot more kinds of work. I'm trying to make my own work a priority in my own life.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll make another film soon. soon.
No, I mean, I must say, like, one of the big eye-opening thing for me was I was traveling on business once, and my son had a fever, and I was calling literally every 20 minutes, saying, "Is he okay? Did you call the doctor? Did you do this?" And at some point, my husband got so irritated. He said, "Don't you think I can take care of our child just like you do?" As a part of the thing is that you feel only I can do it. He doesn't know anything. So he said, "Stop calling. Do your meetings, get it done." So that was a big eye opener for me that I am the problem. He's not the problem. And and you're moving into that, the movies that you make, you have a very evolved male and female characters. So it's not that there's the bad men and there is this poor women. There is shades of gray in everything, especially the latest one being Lapata Ladies. I mean, that husband character was the most endearing for me in the film, of this guy who's, so in love with his wife, but, you know, left her behind, sort of. So tell me a little bit about when you're writing. Is that something you naturally do to make sure you show the duality in characters? Because it's so easy to fall into stereotypes.
Yeah, with Lapata Ladies, actually, we had a wonderful script in what Biplab Goswami had written. He's a man, but he's very passionate about gender equality and women's empowerment. And I loved the story. I loved the script, but I wanted to add more shades to these characters, especially the women. And so we brought on this wonderful writer called Sneha Desai. She's the primary screenwriter. And one of the things that Sneha and I used to talk about when we were developing the story from Biplab's script was the fact that the women that you see or the men that you see often in films are usually either, okay, this is the good guy, the bad guy, and women are either,
the mean mother-in-law or the
mean. So there are so many stereotypes that we tend to sort of fall into when we make films. And this was an opportunity really to show a big spectrum of characters. So you have, even the mother-in-law, for instance, and the grandmother-in-law, having what we often see in TV serials like a Saas Bahu kind of antagonistic relationship almost, or power dynamic to begin with, but how, there are ways in which you can diffuse that, and women...
And you end up saying, hum dono dos ho sakte hai kya?
Exactly.
It's so beautiful. Yeah.
So how solidarity is just that one step away, the way that women can support each other is something that is within reach, So we wanted to offer simple solutions to very old age problems that we have in, especially in very conservative rural households. And of course, the two lead characters were great fun for me too, the women. The vulnerable, innocent girl has actually the longest and most sort of interesting arc to her character because she grows the most. But the male character, I think, is one of the most endearing, like you said, and unusual for Hindi films because he's heroic without, beating up any villains or, he's just heroic because he's so passionate about the woman that he loves. He's so ready to do the right thing by her and so vulnerable. I think that's what makes him the most, heroic in my eyes. So it was fun because we could really create all these different kinds of characters.
So one of the things that was great about the movie is it has many social messages without being a message film. It was a movie we had fun with, you watched, etc. And one of the things actually both Amir and you talk a lot about is doing these focus groups and getting audience involved in the film, right? So when you made the film, you showed it, you had audience respond. So tell me, when you did the focus groups, did that change the film in any way?
Yes. We actually had a lot of test screenings, and the first test screening was quite worrying for us because nobody was laughing. And it took a long time before people realized, oh, this is a light film, it's a comedy, we can laugh. And it took me a long time of, sort of sitting with the edit to realize that it was because we had a song at the very beginning of the film, which was about the girl leaving home and going to her in-laws' house. And it had a kind of a melancholic tone, a bittersweet tone, in which the girl, is sort of talking about how she's worried about the new life that she's going to go and embrace. And that kind of made everybody a bit like worried about this girl from the beginning. So the tone and the pitch was just not comedic. And so I actually re-edited the first 10 minutes entirely and changed the film. And that was all because of audience reactions and feedback.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's a real advantage, because when you want to make a piece of communication that is broad, that you want to sort of reach a lot of people, it's really worthwhile testing it on different kinds of people. And
Yeah.
it's not necessary that you take all their feedback, because at the end of the day, it is an artistic medium. But some feedback can totally change the fate of what you're doing. And I feel in our case, it was the case for sure.
So how do you decide what your next thing is? Now everybody is curious what you're going to do next. And how, because one of the things you said when we were together in LA is, I want to go back and just take some time off and be by myself and think. So what is next for you?
So what's next for me is actually between the 2 years, that long kind of 2 films, the long sabbatical was a writing sabbatical. So lots of projects that I was developing then sort of coming to the fore now. Next up, I actually have a supernatural film that I want to make. I also have another sort of comedy. It's again about 2 women, and there's another dark kind of noir film. So there's a bunch of different projects, but this supernatural film is what I want to make next.
Great. So one of the things, to invite our next guest, I want to say that one of the things in your films, and one of the things we talk about is the arc of a character, like that young girl who goes and what she goes through from not knowing anything to, the evolve. So the next speaker I want to invite is somebody who had that arc of, she was someone who went to US in her 40s with husband and 3 children. And when her mother-in-law asked, why are you going there? She said, I'm going there to create jobs, not take jobs. So I will actually have my own business. And that was her statement to go to US. And she's someone who's tried her hand at being an ice cream truck owner, gas station owner, vending machine owner, all kinds of things, and really someone who has taken on finally to food. And when I first met her in 2005-06 in my Always Collecting People, I heard about this woman whose food was available in all mainstream stores. And I said, oh, I have to meet her. I met her, and her business was $2 million. And I was like, wow, somebody who built a $2 million business out of Indian food. And today, she built a $100 million business out of her brand. And she's here to be with us. Her name, Suki's, is in every store in US. The Indian food is in every American table because of Suki. So with that, I would love to invite Suki onto the stage. Suki, take.